When I told my son's fiancée, I still held the deed to our family's vineyard estate. Her wine glass slipped from her hand and shattered on their polished oak floor. She had just informed me I wasn't welcome at their wedding. My name is Margaret Thompson, and for 38 years, I had silently guarded our family's legacy. A sprawling vineyard in Napa Valley, while everyone, including my son, believed it was sold off during my divorce. That moment, standing in their lavish dining room, changed everything. If you're as curious as I was to see how this unfolds, hit that subscribe button to catch more stories like mine. I was 62, a retired librarian, living in a modest cottage in Sonoma. My life wasn't flashy, but it was mine, built on years of quiet sacrifices. The vineyard had been my father's dream, planted in 1958 with his own hands. He'd pour his heart into every vine, teaching me to cherish what lasts over what shines. Margaret, he'd say, sipping coffee on the estate's porch. People chase appearances, but owning what matters is your truth. Those words stuck with me, especially after my marriage fell apart. I married David Thompson at 23, a charismatic real estate developer with big dreams and bigger promises. Our wedding made the local papers, a librarian's daughter tying the knot with a rising star. We had our son Ethan 2 years later. By the time Ethan was 5, David's success had skyrocketed, but so had his absences. Just one more deal, Margaret, he'd say, missing Ethan's birthdays. Then I found out about Lisa, his assistant. The divorce was brutal. David's lawyers painted me as a small-town nobody, claiming the vineyard as a marital asset to be sold and split. I fought hard, but they thought they'd won. What they didn't know was my secret. 6 months before the divorce, I transferred the vineyard's deed to a private trust in my maiden name. With help from my old friend, Clara, a lawyer. The paperwork showed it was sold to cover debts, but I kept it safe, beyond David's reach. This isn't deceit, Clara told me. It's protecting what's yours. David smirked after the settlement, saying, "Too bad about the vineyard, Margaret. Some investor will pave it over." I nodded, hiding my victory, knowing silence was my strength. For years, I lived simply, stretching my librarian's salary to pay the vineyard's taxes and upkeep. Ethan thought we'd lost it in the divorce. Every summer, while he visited David's new family in San Francisco, I'd spend a week at the vineyard, tending the vines, keeping my father's dream alive. "Mom, why don't we go to the vineyard anymore?" Ethan asked at 8, his eyes full of memories. "It's gone, sweetheart." I lied, the words heavy. I promised myself I'd tell him the truth when he was older, when he could understand its value. Ethan grew up, shaped by David's world of wealth and status. He went to elite schools funded by his father, and our calls became short, his visits rare. "You could live better, Mom," he'd say, eyeing my cottage with pity. I smiled, never mentioning the vineyard I still owned, worth more than his city condo. Then came Rachel, his fiancée, a polished marketing executive from a family like David's. She saw my life as quaint, my career as a librarian as something to pat on the head. "Ethan says you were quite the bookworm," she remarked at our first meeting. As if my life was a dusty novel. I didn't mind, or so I thought, until the wedding plans started. The first sign of trouble came at their engagement party at David's mansion, just miles from the vineyard. The invitation was formal, addressed to Mrs. Margaret Thompson, with Rachel's note. "Keep it simple, just bring yourself." I wore a navy dress from my retirement party, my mother's pearl earrings my only jewelry. The mansion's grandeur, crystal chandeliers, valet parking, felt worlds away from my life. "Mom, you're here," Ethan greeted me, his hug quick, his eyes scanning my outfit. "Rachel's folks are by the bar. Maybe you'd like the patio? It's quieter." His words stung, a gentle push to the sidelines. I smiled and nodded, used to being nudged out of their circle. Later, I overheard Ethan talking to a couple by the dessert table. "My mom, yeah, she was a librarian," he said, his tone warm but distant, like he was describing a relic. "She's happy in her little world, but I'm making sure she's set now." The couple nodded, impressed by his generosity. My heart sank. He had no idea I'd preserved a vineyard worth millions, or that my little world was a choice, not a limitation. Rachel's comments grew sharper over time. At their condo, she'd say things like, You never traveled much, did you, Margaret? We're planning a European honeymoon. I'd smile, thinking of the vineyard's rolling hills, the peace of its quiet mornings. Different kinds of rich, I guess, I'd reply, keeping my thoughts to myself. But nothing prepared me for what came next. 3 months before the wedding, Rachel invited me to lunch at a fancy restaurant in the city. It was our first meeting alone, and her tone was too polished, like she'd rehearsed. Margaret, we need to talk about the wedding, she started, swirling her water glass. We're keeping it exclusive at a resort in Hawaii. Ethan's dad is flying in his business contacts, and my family's bringing their network. It's a certain vibe. I waited, sensing the real point. We're worried you might feel out of place, she said, her eyes avoiding mine. It could be awkward, with David's history and all. My stomach twisted. Are you saying I shouldn't come to my son's wedding? I asked, my voice steady despite the pain. She hesitated. Not exactly. Maybe you'd prefer a private dinner with us later, just the 3 of us. The truth hit hard. She was uninviting me. I looked at her, this woman who'd soon be family, and saw my son's silence behind her words. Does Ethan agree? I asked. Her pause said it all. He understands the situation, she replied. In that moment, I knew the vineyard, my secret for decades, would become more than a legacy. It would be my way to reclaim my place in my son's life. I drove home from that lunch with Rachel, my hands tight on the steering wheel. The hum of my old sedan louder than usual. Her words echoed in my head. Maybe you'd prefer a private dinner. My son's wedding, the day I'd dreamed of since Ethan was a boy, was slipping away, and he hadn't even fought for me. The vineyard's secret burned in my chest, a truth I'd held for years, waiting for the right moment. Now it felt like a lifeline, a way to remind them who I was. Back at my cottage, I sat at the kitchen table, a photo of Ethan at 10 in front of me. He was holding a grapevine from our last summer at the vineyard, his grin wide, dirt smudged on his cheeks. Mom, will we always come back here? He'd asked. I'd promised we would, but life had other plans. I pulled out my phone and called Clara, my friend and lawyer, who'd helped me protect the vineyard all those years ago. Margaret, you okay? She answered, her voice warm but sharp, like she sensed trouble. I told her about Rachel's lunch, the wedding exclusion, Ethan's silence. They think I'm just some old librarian with nothing to offer, I said, my voice cracking. Clara didn't hesitate. You've got the vineyard, Margaret. That's your power. You decide when to play that card. Her words lit a spark. I wasn't ready to reveal it yet, but I knew it was time to start planning. The next week, I visited the vineyard alone. The rolling hills, the rows of vines heavy with grapes, felt like home. I walked to the old stone cottage my father had built, now used for tastings and events. The manager, Tom, greeted me with a hug. Miss Margaret, you don't come enough, he said, his eyes crinkling. I smiled, not telling him why I was there. I spent the day checking records, confirming the trust was ironclad. The vineyard was worth millions now, a fact David and Ethan never suspected. You thinking of selling? Tom asked, noticing my focus. No, I said firmly. This is family. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing Ethan's face at the engagement party, how he'd nudged me to the patio, away from his new world. I thought of Rachel's polished smile, her words about the vibe of their wedding. Anger mixed with hurt, but I didn't want revenge. I wanted them to see me, really see me, not as a footnote in their story. The next morning, Ethan called, his voice hesitant. Mom, Rachel said you two talked about the wedding, he started. I waited, hoping he'd apologize, say it was a mistake. Instead he said, I know it's tough, but Rachel's right. It's better this way. We'll do something special with you after. My heart sank, but I kept my tone steady. Ethan, this is your wedding. I'm your mother. Don't I belong there? He sighed, like I was making it hard. Mom, it's complicated. Dad's people, Rachel's family, it's a lot to balance. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I understand, I said, ending the call. His words hurt worse than Rachel's. He was choosing their world over me, just like David had. I walked to my desk and pulled out the vineyard's deed, the paper worn but solid. Clara's advice echoed. You decide when to play that card. I started to wonder if the vineyard could be more than a secret. It could be a stage. A few days later, Rachel sent a text. Margaret, we'd love to have you at our pre-wedding brunch next month. It's more your speed. The words stung, like she was tossing me a consolation prize. I didn't reply. Instead, I called Tom at the vineyard. Can we host a big event in 3 months? I asked. Like a wedding? He laughed. With enough notice, we can do anything. The cottage is booked solid though. I paused, then said, cancel the bookings for Ethan's wedding weekend. It's time the family came home. Tom didn't question me. He knew the vineyard was mine, even if the world didn't. Over the next few weeks, I kept quiet, letting Ethan and Rachel plan their Hawaii resort wedding. I didn't argue or beg. I went to my knitting group, tended my garden, smiled at neighbors. But inside, I was plotting. Clara came over one evening, bringing wine from the vineyard's latest batch. You're up to something, she said, eyeing me over her glass. I grinned. I'm giving them a wedding they'll never forget. She raised her glass. To Margaret, who plays the long game. I laughed, but my mind was on Ethan. I didn't want to hurt him, but I needed him to remember where he came from. The pre-wedding brunch was my first chance to test the waters. It was held at a trendy cafe in San Francisco, all glass walls and overpriced coffee. Rachel's parents, Ellen and Mark, were there, along with David and his new wife Lisa. Ethan greeted me with a hug, but his eyes darted to Rachel, like he was checking her reaction. Glad you could make it, Mom, he said, guiding me to a corner table. I noticed the other guests. Business types in tailored suits, Rachel's friends in designer dresses. I wore a simple blouse and my pearl earrings, feeling their glances. Rachel made a toast, thanking everyone for supporting their dream wedding. She didn't mention me. David chimed in, joking about his generous contribution to the resort. The room laughed, but I stayed quiet, sipping my coffee. Then Ellen, Rachel's mom, approached me. Margaret, you must be so proud of Ethan, she said, her tone kind but curious. Rachel says you live a simple life. That's so refreshing. I smiled, hiding the sting. I've got everything I need, I said. She nodded, but I saw the pity in her eyes. They all thought I was small, a background character in Ethan's big life. As I left the brunch, Ethan walked me to my car. You okay, Mom? He asked, his voice soft. I looked at him, my boy who'd grown so far from me. I just want you to be happy, I said. He nodded, relieved, thinking the matter was settled. But it wasn't. That night, I sat on my porch, the vineyard's deed in my hands. I pictured Ethan and Rachel's faces when they learned the truth. The vineyard wasn't just land. It was my heart, my father's dream, our family's roots. I'd kept it safe for Ethan, but now it would be my voice. I called Clara. I'm ready, I said. Let's make the vineyard the wedding venue. She laughed. Oh, Margaret, this is going to be good. I hung up, feeling a mix of nerves and excitement. For the first time in years, I wasn't just Ethan's mom or David's ex. I was Margaret Thompson, and I was about to change everything. The weeks after the brunch felt heavy, like I was carrying a secret too big for my small cottage. I'd decided to make the vineyard the wedding venue. But Ethan and Rachel still thought their Hawaii resort was set. I didn't tell them anything yet. I wanted the moment to hit hard, to make them see me not as the quiet librarian they'd pushed aside, but as the woman who'd held our family's heart together. I spent my days planning with Clara and Tom, the vineyard manager, keeping every detail tight. We'll need extra staff, Margaret, Tom said over coffee at the vineyard's cottage. A wedding this size, it's a big deal. I nodded, picturing Ethan's face when he realized where he'd say his vows. Make it perfect, Tom, I said. This is for family. At home, I kept up my routine, watering my roses, chatting with neighbors, knitting with my group. But my mind was on the vineyard. I'd walk to my attic and pull out old photos. My father pruning vines, Ethan running through the rows as a boy, me and David laughing on the porch before everything changed. Those memories fueled me, reminding me why I'd fought so hard to keep the land. One evening, Rachel called, her voice bright but sharp. Margaret, we're finalizing the guest list for Hawaii, she said. Just wanted to confirm you're okay with the private dinner plan. I took a breath, keeping my tone calm. Rachel, I'm still thinking about it, I said. She paused, surprised. Oh well, let us know soon. It's a tight schedule. I hung up, my heart racing. She had no idea what was coming. A few days later, Ethan stopped by my cottage unannounced, a rare visit. He looked tired, his suit wrinkled from a long day. Mom, you've been quiet, he said, sitting at my kitchen table. Rachel said you're not sure about the dinner. I poured him tea, choosing my words carefully. Ethan, do you want me at your wedding? I asked, looking him in the eyes. He shifted, uncomfortable. Of course, Mom, but it's complicated. Rachel's family, Dad's contacts, it's a lot. I nodded, hiding the ache. I just want to be part of your life, I said. He reached for my hand, his grip warm but brief. You are, Mom. Always. His words felt hollow, but I smiled, letting him think I'd accepted it. After he left, I called Clara. He's still siding with her, I said, my voice shaking. Then show him who you are, she replied. The vineyard's your truth. Her words steadied me. I started working faster, meeting Tom to plan the wedding setup. String lights over the vines, a wooden arch by the cottage, tables for 100 guests. It'll be better than any resort, Tom said, grinning. I hoped he was right. Meanwhile, Rachel kept sending me updates about Hawaii. Photos of the venue, snippets about her dress. Each message felt like a jab, a reminder I wasn't included. One text read, Margaret, you'd love the resort's view. We'll take you somewhere nice later. I didn't reply, but I saved every message, fuel for my resolve. A twist came when David called, his voice smooth as ever. Margaret, Ethan says you're upset about the wedding, he said. Let's not make this messy. I'm covering the resort, big expense. You can have your moment with them after. His tone, so sure he'd won again, lit a fire in me. David, I don't need your moments, I said, my voice firm. I've got my own. He laughed, thinking I was bluffing. Still stubborn, huh? He said before hanging up. I stared at the phone, my hands trembling. He'd underestimated me once, and now his son was doing the same. The next week, I got a call from Ellen, Rachel's mom, who'd been kind at the brunch. Margaret, I heard you're not coming to Hawaii, she said, her voice soft. I'm sorry. It doesn't feel right. I was surprised by her honesty. Thank you, Ellen, I said. But I'll be fine. She hesitated. You're stronger than they realize, she added before hanging up. Her words stayed with me, a reminder I wasn't alone. I started to wonder if others saw what Ethan couldn't. One rainy afternoon, I drove to the vineyard to clear my head. The vines glistened under the clouds, and I walked to the cottage, where Tom was setting up sample tables. You sure about this, Margaret? He asked, wiping rain from his face. It's a big move. I looked at the hills, my father's dream alive in every row. I've never been surer, I said. That night, I wrote a letter to Ethan, not to send yet, but to sort my thoughts. You've forgotten where we come from, I wrote. The vineyard's not just land, it's us. I kept it for you, but now it's time you see me. Writing it felt like a release, but I tucked it away, waiting for the right moment. The plan was moving fast now. Clara helped me draft a new invitation, one that would replace Rachel's Hawaii resort. You're rewriting their story, she said, grinning. I nodded, nervous but excited. The vineyard wasn't just a venue. It was my way to bring Ethan back to his roots. A few days later, Rachel invited me to a dress fitting, another small event she thought suited me. I went, curious to see her world. The boutique was all mirrors and silk, her friends gushing over her gown. Margaret, isn't it stunning? She asked, spinning in white lace. Beautiful, I said, meaning it. She smiled, but her eyes held that same pity. You're so sweet to come, she said, like I was a guest in her life. I left the fitting with a new resolve. Rachel thought she was in control, but the vineyard was mine, and soon, everyone would know. Back home, I got a call from Tom. The cottage is ready, he said. Lights, arch, everything. Just say the word. I took a deep breath. Send the new invitations next week, I said. It's time. I hung up, my heart pounding. Ethan and Rachel were about to learn the truth, and I wasn't just their quiet mom anymore. I was the woman who'd kept our family's soul alive, and I was ready to show them what that meant. The days after I told Tom to send the new invitations felt like waiting for a storm to break. I'd walk to my mailbox each morning, half expecting a call from Ethan or Rachel, but nothing came. The silence was loud, heavier than the vineyard's quiet hills. I kept busy, helping Tom with final touches, picking flowers for the tables, tasting wines for the reception. "This'll be a wedding folks won't forget," he said, adjusting lights over the cottage porch. I smiled, but my stomach twisted. I wasn't just planning a wedding. I was rewriting my place in Ethan's life. At home, I'd sit with my knitting, the click of needles steadying my nerves. Clara stopped by one evening, her eyes bright with excitement. "The invitations went out today," she said, handing me a copy. It was simple but elegant. "Join Ethan Thompson and Rachel Carter for their wedding at Thompson Vineyard, Napa Valley." My name wasn't on it, just like I wanted. The surprise had to hit them first. "You're playing chess, Margaret," Clara said, grinning. "And you're winning." I laughed, but doubt crept in. What if Ethan got angry? What if Rachel refused? I pushed the thoughts away, focusing on the vineyard's rose, my father's legacy. One afternoon, I got a text from Ellen, Rachel's mom. "Margaret, is this vineyard thing real?" Rachel's confused. My heart raced. The invitations had reached them. I typed back, "It's real. I'll explain soon." I didn't want to tip my hand yet. That night, Ethan called, his voice tight. "Mom, what's going on?" "Rachel got some invitation to a vineyard." "Our vineyard?" "I thought we sold it." I took a deep breath, keeping my tone calm. "Ethan, there's a lot you don't know," I said. "Come to the vineyard this weekend. Bring Rachel." He hesitated, then said, "Okay, but this better not be a mess." I hung up, my hands shaking. The moment was coming. On Saturday, I drove to the vineyard early, the air crisp with fall. Tom had outdone himself. Tables set with white linens, vines glowing under the sun. I wore a simple green dress, my mother's pearl earrings catching the light. When Ethan and Rachel arrived, their car gleaming in the dirt lot, I stood by the cottage, my heart pounding. Rachel stepped out first, her heels sinking into the gravel. "Margaret, what is this?" she asked, holding the invitation. Ethan followed, his face a mix of confusion and frustration. "Mom, explain," he said. I looked at them, my son and his fiancée, and felt years of silence lift. "This is our vineyard," I said. "I never sold it. I kept it for you, Ethan, for our family." Rachel's eyes widened, her hand clutching Ethan's arm. "You own this?" she asked, glancing at the hills. Ethan stared at me, like he was seeing me for the first time. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, his voice soft but sharp. I took a step closer. "I wanted you to value what matters," I said. "Not money or status, but roots. This is where you come from." Rachel looked around, her polished confidence fading. "But the resort, we've paid deposits," she said. I nodded. "I know. But this is better. This is home." Ethan walked past me, toward the vines, his hands in his pockets. I followed, leaving Rachel by the cottage. "Mom, you kept this secret my whole life," he said, touching a grapevine. "Why now?" I swallowed hard. "Because you were letting me go," I said. "You didn't want me at your wedding." He turned, his eyes wet. "I didn't mean it like that," he said. Rachel thought. "I just went along." His words hurt, but they were honest. I touched his arm. "You can still choose, Ethan. This vineyard is yours, but only if you see what it means." He nodded, silent, and walked back to Rachel. They talked quietly, her hands waving, his head low. I stayed back, letting them process. Tom approached, whispering, "You okay, Miss Margaret?" I nodded, but my chest was tight. I'd laid my truth bare, and now it was up to them. Later, Rachel came to me, her face softer. "Margaret, this place is beautiful," she said. "But it's a lot to change now." I smiled, hiding my nerves. "Take your time," I said. "Just know it's here." They left without a decision, and I drove home, the weight of the day heavy. That night, I got a call from David. "Margaret, what's this vineyard nonsense?" he snapped. "You're embarrassing Ethan." I laughed, surprising myself. "David, you lost this fight years ago," I said. "The vineyard's mine, and so is my son's heart." He hung up, and I felt a rush of strength. The next day, Ellen called again. "Margaret, I talked to Rachel," she said. "She's shaken. She didn't know you were this." I thanked her, feeling a spark of hope. Maybe Rachel was starting to see me. Over the next few days, I waited, no word from Ethan or Rachel. I kept busy, helping Tom with the vineyard, but my mind was on them. One evening, I found the letter I'd written to Ethan in my desk. I read it again, my words raw. "You've forgotten where we come from." I tucked it away, wondering if he'd ever understand. Then on Friday, Ethan texted, "Mom, we need to talk. Can we come to the vineyard again?" My heart leaped. I replied, "Anytime." I called Clara, my voice trembling. "They're coming back," I said. She laughed. "You did it, Margaret. You're pulling them home." I hung up, looking at the vineyard photos on my wall. The truth was out, but the real test was coming. Would Ethan and Rachel choose the vineyard, or would they cling to their polished plans? I didn't know, but for the first time, I felt like I was in control, not just a guest in their world. Waiting for Ethan and Rachel to return to the vineyard felt like holding my breath. I'd wake up each morning, checking my phone for their message, but the days stretched on with nothing. I kept busy, tending my garden, meeting Clara for coffee, but my thoughts were on the vineyard's rows, the cottage ready for a wedding that might never happen. I'd picture Ethan's face when I told him I owned the land, shock, maybe betrayal. Had I pushed too far? I didn't know, but I couldn't back down now. On Wednesday, Tom called from the vineyard. "Everything's set, Margaret," he said. "Just need the green light." I thanked him, my voice steady despite the knot in my chest. I wanted to believe Ethan would choose the vineyard, but his silence made me doubt. That evening, I sat on my porch, a photo of my father by the vines in my hands. "You'd know what to do," I whispered, missing his quiet wisdom. The next day, Ethan's text came. "We're coming tomorrow, Mom. Noon." My heart jumped, but I felt a flicker of fear. What if they rejected the vineyard? I called Clara, needing her strength. "They're coming," I said, my voice shaky. "What if they say no?" She laughed softly. "Margaret, you've already won. You showed them your truth." Her words helped, but sleep didn't come easy that night. I arrived at the vineyard early, the sun warm on the hills. Tom had set up a small table by the cottage, with wine and glasses, like a welcome. I wore a blue dress, simple but new, my pearl earrings a quiet nod to my mother. When Ethan's car pulled up, dust swirling, I stood tall, my hands clasped tight. Rachel stepped out, her face unreadable, followed by Ethan, who looked tired but curious. "Mom," he said, hugging me briefly. "This place, it's really ours?" I nodded, leading them to the table. "Always has been," I said. Rachel sat, her eyes scanning the vines. "Margaret, this is stunning," she said, her voice softer than before. "But we've got contracts in Hawaii. Deposits. Guests." I poured wine, my hand steady. "I know," I said. "But this is where Ethan's story started. Where our family's heart is." Ethan looked at me, his eyes searching. "You kept this from me for years," he said. Not angry but hurt. "Why didn't you trust me?" The question stung. I set down my glass. "I was waiting for you to see what matters," I said. "Money, status, that's your dad's world. This is ours." He looked away, toward the hills, and I saw a flicker of the boy who'd run through these rows. Rachel touched his arm. "Ethan, maybe we should think about it," she said, surprising me. "This place, it's special." I held my breath, hope rising. They walked the vineyard together, talking quietly, while I stayed back with Tom. "Think they'll go for it?" he asked. I shrugged, my heart heavy. "I hope so." When they returned, Ethan's face was serious. "Mom, we need time," he said. "This is a lot." I nodded, hiding my disappointment. "Take all the time you need," I said. Rachel smiled, a real smile, not her usual polished one. "Thank you, Margaret," she said, "for showing us this." They left, and I felt a mix of relief and worry. I'd open the door, but would they walk through? That night, I got a call from Ellen, Rachel's mom. "Margaret, Rachel told me about the vineyard," she said, her voice warm. "She's never seen anything like it. You're changing how she sees you." I thanked her, tears in my eyes. Maybe I was getting through. The next day a twist came. David showed up at my cottage unannounced, his fancy car out of place on my quiet street. "Margaret, stop this vineyard stunt," he said, standing in my living room. You're messing with Ethan's future. I looked at him, the man who'd tried to take everything from me. This isn't about you, David, I said. It's about our son. He laughed cold and sharp. You think a piece of dirt will change anything? Ethan's my boy now. His words cut deep, but I stood firm. Get out, I said, my voice low. He left, slamming the door, and I sank into a chair, shaking. Had I lost Ethan to David's world? I called Clara, spilling everything. He's wrong, Margaret, she said. Ethan's coming back to you. Just wait. I wanted to believe her, but doubt gnawed at me. Over the next few days, I kept working with Tom, finalizing details for a wedding that wasn't confirmed. You're betting big, he said, stringing lights over the arch. I nodded, thinking of my father's words. On what matters? I was betting on Ethan, on our family. Then on Sunday, Rachel called, her voice nervous. Margaret, can we meet again? Just me. I agreed, curious but wary. We met at a cafe near my cottage. Her usual polish replaced by something real. I didn't get it before, she said, stirring her coffee. Why you kept the vineyard? But seeing it, it's like meeting you for the first time. I listened, my heart softening. It's not just land, I said. It's love. She nodded, her eyes wet. I want to talk to Ethan about moving the wedding, she said. But he's torn. His dad's pushing hard. I reached for her hand. Do what feels right, I said. She squeezed my hand, and for the first time, I felt a connection. Driving home, I felt lighter, like the storm might finally break. I looked at the vineyard photos on my wall, Ethan's boyhood smile bright. Maybe Rachel was the key to bringing him back. But David's words lingered, a shadow I couldn't shake. I wrote in my journal that night. I've given them the truth. Now it's their turn to choose. I closed the book, my heart full of hope and fear. Ethan's next move would tell me if I'd won my son back, or lost him for good. The days after my coffee with Rachel felt like walking a tightrope. Her words, so honest and raw, gave me hope, but Ethan's silence kept me on edge. I'd catch myself staring at the vineyard photos on my wall, wondering if he'd ever see them the way I did. I kept my routine, watering my roses, knitting with friends, but my heart was at the vineyard, waiting for his choice. One morning, Clara called, her voice bright. Any word from the kids? She asked. I sighed, admitting they hadn't decided. Give them time, Margaret, she said. You've shaken their world. I nodded, but time felt like a weight I couldn't carry much longer. That afternoon, I drove to the vineyard, needing its peace. Tom was there, checking the arch for the wedding. Still holding out? He asked, his grin kind. I smiled, touching a vine. Always, I said. The hills stretched out, steady and sure, like my father's dream. I sat by the cottage, sipping coffee, when my phone rang. It was Ethan, his voice low. Mom, can we talk? Just you and me. My heart leaped. Come to the vineyard, I said. I'm here. He arrived an hour later, alone, his face tired but soft. He hugged me, longer than usual, and we walked through the vines, the air warm with summer's end. I've been thinking, he said, kicking a stone. About what you said. About roots. I waited, letting him speak. Rachel wants the vineyard, he went on. She says it's real, not like the resort. But Dad's furious. He says it's a step down. I looked at him, my son caught between worlds. What do you want, Ethan? I asked. He stopped, looking at the hills. I don't know, he said. I thought I wanted his life, money, status. But this place fits you. It's us. His words hit me hard, a crack in the wall he'd built. I touched his shoulder. You don't have to choose him or me, I said. Choose what feels true. He nodded, his eyes wet, and we sat by the cottage, silent but close. For the first time in years, I felt my boy coming back. That night, Rachel texted. Margaret, I'm sorry for how things started. I see you now. Can we plan together? I stared at the message, tears falling. She was reaching out, not as the polished fiancé, but as family. I replied, yes. Let's make it beautiful. The next day, they both came to the vineyard, and we sat with Tom, mapping out the wedding. Rachel was different, less guarded, her laugh real. These vines are magic, she said, touching a grape. Ethan watched her, then looked at me. Mom, I'm sorry, he said, his voice breaking. I should have fought for you. I hugged him, my heart full. You're here now, I said. But a twist came fast. David called Ethan that evening, and I overheard their fight through Ethan's phone, left on speaker by mistake. You're throwing away everything I built for you, David yelled. That vineyard's a joke and your mother's playing you. Ethan's voice was firm. It's not a joke, Dad. It's home. I froze, pride mixing with fear. David wouldn't let this go. The next morning, Ellen, Rachel's mom, showed up at my cottage, her face worried. Margaret, David's telling people the vineyard's a scam, she said. He's saying you faked the deed. I laughed, but it hurt. Let him try, I said, showing her the trust papers Clara had secured. Ellen read them, her eyes wide. You're incredible, she said. Rachel's lucky to have you. Her words warmed me. But David's lies were a storm brewing. I called Clara, who was ready. We'll shut him down, she said. The vineyard's yours airtight. Over the next few days, Ethan and Rachel dove into wedding plans, their excitement contagious. Rachel picked wildflowers for the tables, and Ethan helped Tom hang lights. This feels right, he told me, hammering a stake for the arch. I smiled, but David's shadow lingered. One evening, I found Ethan by the vines, alone, his face heavy. Dad's offering me a job, he said. Big money in New York. He says it's my future. I sat beside him, my heart tight. Is that what you want? I asked. He shook his head. I want this, he said, gesturing to the vineyard. But he makes it sound like I'm failing if I stay. I took his hand. You're not failing, I said. You're choosing what lasts. He leaned against me, like he did as a boy, and I felt the years melt away. The next day, Rachel pulled me aside at the vineyard. Margaret, I told my parents we're doing it here, she said, her eyes bright. They're coming early to help. I hugged her, feeling her walls fall. But that night, a new twist hit. Tom called, his voice tense. Margaret, someone's been poking around the vineyard records, he said, asking about the trust. I knew it was David, digging for a fight. I called Clara, who promised to handle it, but fear crept in. What if he found a loophole? I didn't sleep, my mind racing. The next morning, Ethan and Rachel arrived, unaware of the threat. They laughed, planning the menu. And I hid my worry, smiling through it. But when Ethan mentioned David's job offer again, I saw doubt in his eyes. Mom, what if I'm wrong about this? He asked. I looked at him, my son at a crossroads. Trust your heart, I said. It brought you here. He nodded, but I knew the battle wasn't over. I sat on my porch that night, the vineyard deed in my hands, its weight heavier than ever. David was coming for us, and Ethan was wavering. I wrote in my journal. I've given him the truth, but he has to choose it. I closed the book, my heart pounding. The wedding was close, but so was the storm, and I wasn't sure we'd weather it. The vineyard felt different now, like it was holding its breath with me. Ethan and Rachel were planning their wedding there, but David's shadow loomed larger every day. His lies about the vineyard's deed and his job offer to Ethan kept me awake, my mind spinning with what-ifs. I'd sit at my kitchen table, staring at old photos of Ethan among the vines, praying he'd choose our roots over his father's promises. Clara called one morning, her voice sharp. David's hired a lawyer to challenge the trust, she said. He's claiming fraud. My heart sank, but I trusted Clara. Can he win? I asked. Not a chance, she said. Your papers are solid. But he's stirring trouble. I thanked her, my resolve hardening. David wouldn't take the vineyard again. I drove to the vineyard that afternoon, needing its calm. Tom was setting up chairs for the ceremony, his face cheerful. Almost ready, Margaret, he said. I smiled, but my worry slipped out. Tom, what if David ruins this? He put a hand on my shoulder. This land's yours. No one's taking it. His words steadied me, but the fear lingered. That evening, Ethan and Rachel came to my cottage, their faces tense. Mom, Dad's saying the vineyard isn't yours, Ethan said, sitting on my couch. Rachel nodded, her eyes worried. He called my parents, saying we're being tricked. I took a deep breath, pulling the trust papers from my desk. These prove I own it, I said, handing them to Ethan. I kept it safe for you. He read them, his jaw tight. Why's he doing this? He asked, more to himself than me. Rachel touched his arm. Because he's losing you, she said. Her words surprised me, sharp and true. I looked at her, seeing a strength I hadn't noticed before. Rachel's right, I said. Your dad wants control. But this vineyard is our truth. Ethan nodded, but doubt clouded his eyes. He's offering me everything, Mom, he said. A corner office, a life in New York. What if I'm passing that up for nothing? I sat beside him, my heart heavy. You're not choosing nothing, I said. You're choosing what lasts, family love roots. He looked at me, his face soft. I want to believe that, he said. Rachel squeezed his hand. We'll figure it out, she said, glancing at me with a small smile. I felt a spark of hope, but David's threat was real. The next day, Ellen called, her voice urgent. Margaret, David's spreading rumors to our guests, she said, saying the vineyard's a risky venue. I gripped the phone, anger rising. He's wrong, I said. Come see it yourself. She agreed, and that afternoon, she and Rachel's dad, Mark, arrived at the vineyard. I walked them through the rows, showing them the cottage, the arch, the lights. Ellen's eyes shone. This is beautiful, Margaret, she said. David's full of it. Mark nodded. We're telling everyone to come here. Their support lifted me, but I knew David wouldn't stop. That night, I got a call from an unknown number. It was Lisa, David's wife. Margaret, I shouldn't be calling, she whispered. David's obsessed with stopping this wedding. He's digging into your past. My stomach twisted. Why tell me? I asked. She paused. Because Ethan deserves better, she said. And so do you. I thanked her, stunned, and hung up. Lisa's call was a twist I hadn't seen coming, a crack in David's armor. I told Clara, who laughed. Even his wife's turning on him, she said. You're winning, Margaret. But winning felt far off. Ethan was still torn, and the wedding was weeks away. The next morning, I found Ethan at the vineyard, alone, sitting by the cottage. I couldn't sleep, he said, his voice rough. Dad's in my head. I sat with him, the vines quiet around us. What's he saying? I asked. He sighed. That I'm throwing away my future. That you're holding me back. I swallowed the hurt. Do you believe him? I asked. He looked at me, his eyes searching. No, he said. But it's hard. He's always been the one with the answers. I took his hand. You don't need his answers, I said. You've got your own. He leaned against me, and for a moment, we were just mother and son, the vineyard wrapping us in its peace. Later, Rachel joined us, her face bright. My parents are all in, she said. They're telling everyone it's here. She hugged me, her embrace warm. You're amazing, Margaret, she said. I smiled, but David's threat gnawed at me. That evening, Clara called with news. David's lawyer backed off, she said. They found nothing. The trust is untouchable. I exhaled, relief washing over me. But I knew David would try something else. The next day, Ethan and Rachel worked with Tom, laughing as they tested wines. I watched from the porch, my heart full but wary. Then Ethan pulled me aside. Mom, I'm staying, he said. No, New York. This is home. Tears stung my eyes. You mean it? I asked. He nodded, hugging me tight. I'm sorry I doubted you, he said. I held him, feeling years of distance fade. But that night a new twist hit. Tom called, his voice shaky. Margaret, someone tried to break into the vineyard office, he said. They didn't get in, but it's no accident. I knew it was David's doing, his last desperate move. I called Clara, my voice firm. We're ending this, I said. She agreed, ready to fight. I looked at the vineyard photos on my wall, Ethan's smile bright. He'd chosen me, but David was still out there, and the wedding was coming fast. I wrote in my journal. He's fighting dirty, but I'm fighting for love. I closed the book, my heart racing. The storm was here, and I had to protect my family. The vineyard felt like a battlefield now, its quiet hills hiding the war David was waging. The break-in attempt shook me, but Ethan's choice to stay gave me strength. I woke each morning with my heart racing, checking my phone for news from Clara or Tom. I'd walk to my garden, pulling weeds, trying to keep my hands steady. But my mind was on the wedding, now just 2 weeks away. Clara called early one day, her voice calm but firm. We've got security cameras at the vineyard now, she said. And I've filed a restraining order against David. He's out of moves. I thanked her, but doubt lingered. David was slippery, always one step ahead. I drove to the vineyard, needing to see it safe. Tom was there, checking the locks. No more trouble since the other night, he said, his face serious. But we're watching. I nodded, touching the cottage door. It would warm under my fingers. This was my father's dream, my fight, and I wouldn't let David touch it. That afternoon, Ethan and Rachel arrived, their arms full of wedding plans, menus, music lists, guest replies. Rachel's laugh echoed through the vines, and Ethan's smile was lighter than I'd seen in years. Mom, this is gonna be perfect, he said, showing me a sketch of the ceremony arch. I hugged him, my heart full, but I didn't tell them about the break-in. They didn't need that weight. Later, Rachel pulled me aside, her eyes soft. Margaret, I was wrong about you, she said. I thought you weren't small. But this vineyard, your strength, it's huge. Her words hit deep, and I squeezed her hand. We're family now, I said. She nodded, tears in her eyes. And for the first time, I felt she meant it. But trouble wasn't far. That evening, Ellen called, her voice shaky. Margaret, David's been calling our guests again, she said. Saying the vineyard's unsafe, that you're unstable. I gripped the phone, anger burning. He's lying, I said. Come to the vineyard tomorrow. Bring Mark. See the truth. She agreed, and I hung up, my hands trembling. David was desperate, and desperate men were dangerous. The next day, Ellen and Mark arrived, their faces worried but kind. I walked them through the vineyard, showing the cameras, the locked office, the wedding setup. This is beautiful, Mark said, his voice firm. David's wrong. Ellen hugged me. We're telling everyone to ignore him, she said. This is where the wedding belongs. Their support felt like armor, but I knew David wasn't done. That night, Ethan called, his voice tense. Mom, Dad's saying he'll sue if we use the vineyard, he said. He's got a lawyer ready. I took a breath, keeping my voice steady. Let him try, I said. Clara's handled it. The vineyard's ours. Ethan paused, then said, I trust you, Mom. His words were a lifeline, but I heard the strain in his voice. David was still pulling at him. The next morning, a twist came. Lisa, David's wife, showed up at my cottage, her face pale. Margaret, I'm leaving David, she said, standing in my doorway. He's out of control, threatening you, Ethan, everyone. I stared, shocked. Why tell me? I asked. She looked down. Because you're stronger than he ever was, she said. And Ethan needs you. I invited her in, pouring tea, listening as she spilled years of David's control. He's scared of you, she said. This vineyard, it's everything he couldn't take. I thanked her, my mind reeling. Lisa's betrayal of David was a blow he wouldn't expect. I called Clara, telling her everything. This changes the game, she said. David's alone now. I felt a surge of hope, but the wedding was close, and tension was high. Over the next few days, Ethan and Rachel worked tirelessly at the vineyard, their excitement mixed with nerves. Mom, what if Dad shows up? Ethan asked one afternoon, stringing lights. I looked at him, my son who'd chosen me. He won't ruin this, I said. We're stronger. He nodded, but I saw worry in his eyes. Rachel was steadier, her confidence growing. This is our day, she told me, arranging flowers. Not his. I admired her fire, so different from the woman who'd uninvited me. But a new twist hit. Tom called late one night, his voice urgent. Margaret, we found a forged document at the county office, he said. Someone tried to file a claim on the vineyard, saying it's David's. I felt sick, but Clara was ready. It's fake, she said when I called. We're stopping it tomorrow. I didn't sleep, my mind on David's endless schemes. The next day, Clara met with county officials, proving the forgery. David's fingerprints are all over this, she said. He's done. I exhaled, but the fight had taken its toll. I drove to the vineyard, finding Ethan and Rachel laughing over table settings. I didn't tell them about the forgery, not yet. They deserved this joy. Later, Ethan pulled me aside. "Mom, I'm cutting Dad off," he said, his voice firm. "No more calls, no more offers. I'm done." I hugged him, tears falling. "I'm proud of you," I said. He smiled, but I saw the weight of his choice. That night, I sat on my porch, the vineyard deed in my hands. David was losing, but he'd fight to the end. I wrote in my journal, "Ethan's chosen us, but the war's not over." I closed the book, my heart heavy. The wedding was days away, and I had to protect my family, no matter what came next. The vineyard glowed under the morning sun. Its vines ready for the wedding, now just 3 days away. But David's shadow hung over me, his forged document, and threats a reminder he wouldn't quit. I'd wake up checking my phone, half expecting another blow, but Clara's voice in my head kept me steady. "He's done, Margaret." I wanted to believe her, but my heart raced as I tended my roses, my hands shaky. Ethan and Rachel were at the vineyard daily now, their laughter mixing with Tom's as they set up chairs and lights. I'd watch them, my chest tight with pride and fear. They didn't know about the forgery, and I wanted to keep it that way. One morning, Rachel found me by the cottage, arranging flowers. "Margaret, this is better than any resort," she said, her eyes bright. "I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." I hugged her, feeling her warmth. "You see it now," I said. She nodded, then hesitated. "Ethan's worried about his dad," she said. "He thinks he'll show up." I swallowed hard, hiding my own fear. "We'll handle it," I said, hoping I sounded sure. That afternoon, Ethan pulled me aside, his face heavy. "Mom, I got a text from Dad," he said. "He says he's coming to the wedding, invited or not." My stomach twisted, but I kept my voice calm. "Let him come," I said. "This is our place, not his." Ethan looked at me, his eyes searching. "You're not scared?" he asked. I smiled, touching his cheek. "I've faced him before," I said. "We're stronger now." He nodded, but I saw the boy in him, caught between his parents. Later, Clara called with good news. "The county threw out the forged claim," she said. "David's lawyer admitted it was fake. He's got nothing left." I exhaled, relief washing over me. "Will he stop?" I asked. Clara laughed. "He's out of tricks, but he might show his face. Be ready." I thanked her, my resolve firm. David could come, but he wouldn't win. That evening, Ellen and Mark arrived at the vineyard to help, bringing boxes of decorations. Ellen hugged me tight. "This is magic, Margaret," she said. "David's lies didn't touch it." Mark nodded, setting up tables. "He's a fool to challenge you," he said. Their support felt like a shield, but I knew the real test was coming. The next day, a twist hit. Tom found a letter slipped under the vineyard office door, unsigned but clearly from David. It read, "You'll regret this, Margaret. Ethan's mine." I showed it to Clara, my hands shaking. "He's desperate," she said. "This is just noise." But the words burned, a threat to my son's heart. I didn't tell Ethan or Rachel, not wanting to cloud their joy. Instead, I worked beside them, stringing lights, my smile hiding the storm inside. That night, Rachel's parents hosted a small dinner at their hotel for the wedding party. I went, wearing my blue dress, my pearl earrings catching the light. Ethan greeted me with a hug, his smile real. "Mom, it's almost here," he said, his voice light. Rachel joined us, her arm around him. "We couldn't have done this without you," she said. I smiled, but David's letter weighed on me. During dinner, Ellen made a toast. "To Margaret," she said, raising her glass, "for giving us this vineyard, this family." The room cheered, and Ethan squeezed my hand. I blinked back, tears, feeling seen. But as we left, Ethan got a call and stepped outside. I followed, catching his tense voice. "Dad, stop," he said. "I'm not leaving. This is my home." I stayed back, my heart pounding. Ethan hung up, his face pale. "He's coming tomorrow," he said, looking at me, "to talk sense into me." I took his arm. "Let him talk," I said. "You've already chosen." He nodded, but fear flickered in his eyes. The next morning, I arrived at the vineyard early, finding Tom checking the security cameras. "All clear," he said, but his face was tight. I walked the rows, the vines steady under my touch, and prayed for strength. Ethan and Rachel arrived, laughing over last-minute details, unaware of David's plan. I kept quiet, not wanting to dim their light. Then, just before noon, David's car pulled up, sleek and out of place. He stepped out, his suit crisp, his smile sharp. "Margaret," he said, walking toward me. "Nice try, but this ends now." Ethan and Rachel joined us, their faces tense. "Dad, go," Ethan said, his voice firm. David laughed. "You think this vineyard's your future? It's a trap." I stepped forward, my voice steady. "It's our home," I said. "You lost it years ago." David's eyes narrowed. "You hid it, Margaret. That's fraud. I'll drag this out in court." Clara appeared, her presence calm but fierce. "Try it, David," she said, holding the trust papers. "You've got nothing." David's smile faltered, but he turned to Ethan. "Come with me, son," he said. "New York real money. Not this dirt." Ethan looked at him, then at me, his eyes clear. "This dirt's my home," he said. "You're not my future." David's face hardened, and he left, his car speeding away. Rachel hugged Ethan, tears on her cheeks. "You did it," she whispered. I watched, my heart full but heavy. We'd won this round, but the wedding was tomorrow, and I felt the weight of what was still to come. That night, I sat on my porch, the vineyard deed in my hands. I wrote in my journal. Ethan stood up to him, but the day's not here yet. I closed the book, my heart racing. The vineyard was ready, and so was I, but David's defeat felt too easy. I prayed the wedding would be ours, untouched by his shadow. The morning of Ethan and Rachel's wedding dawned clear, the vineyard's hills glowing under a soft sun. I stood by the cottage, my blue dress pressed, my mother's pearl earrings catching the light. The air buzzed with last-minute preparations, Tom directing staff, flowers lining the arch, lights twinkling in the vines. But my heart was on David's defeat yesterday, his car speeding away after Ethan's stand. I prayed he was gone for good, but a flicker of doubt lingered. I pushed it down, focusing on my son's day. Guests arrived, their cars filling the lot, voices mixing with birdsong. Ellen and Mark greeted me with hugs, their smiles warm. "You did this, Margaret," Ellen said, her eyes wet. I smiled, my chest tight with gratitude. Rachel's friends, once so polished, now laughed freely, charmed by the vineyard's warmth. I scanned the crowd for Ethan, finding him by the arch, adjusting his tie. "Mom," he said, hugging me tight. "This is perfect." I touched his cheek, seeing the boy I'd raised. "It's yours," I said. "Always was." Rachel appeared, her white dress simple but stunning, wildflowers in her hair. She hugged me, her voice soft. "Margaret, thank you," she said. "This is home." I blinked back, tears, feeling her as a daughter, not just a fiancée. The ceremony began, the crowd quieting as music played. Ethan and Rachel stood under the arch, their vows honest and raw. "I promise to choose what's real," Ethan said, glancing at me. Rachel nodded, her eyes on him. "I promise to build a life that lasts," she said. I gripped my chair, tears falling. They were choosing the vineyard, our roots, over the world that had tried to pull them away. But a twist came mid-ceremony. A car roared into the lot, and my stomach dropped. "David." He stepped out, his suit sharp, his face set. Guests turned, whispers rising. Ethan froze, Rachel's hand tight in his. I stood, my heart pounding, and walked toward him, Clara at my side. "You're not welcome," I said, my voice steady. David smirked. "This is my son's wedding," he said. "You can't stop me." Clara stepped forward, holding papers. "This says we can," she said, showing the restraining order. David's eyes narrowed, but Ethan approached, his face calm. "Dad, go," he said. "You don't belong here." David's smirk faded, his shoulders slumping. He looked at me, then Ethan, and walked away, his car disappearing down the road. The crowd exhaled, and I hugged Ethan, my heart soaring. "You're free," I whispered. He nodded, tears in his eyes, and returned to Rachel. The ceremony continued, the air lighter, like a storm had passed. After the vows, Ethan took the microphone, his voice clear. "This vineyard is my mother's gift," he said, looking at me. "She kept it for us, through everything. Mom, you're our heart." The crowd clapped, some crying, and I stood, my face wet, feeling seen at last. Rachel joined him, her smile bright. "Margaret, you taught us what family means," she said. I waved, my voice gone, as guests cheered. The reception was alive with laughter, music, and wine from our vines. Ellen pulled me to dance, her joy contagious. "You changed everything," she said. I laughed, spinning with her, my heart full. Later, Ethan found me by the cottage, the stars bright above. "Mom, I'm staying in Napa," he said. "Rachel and we want to run the vineyard with you." I stared, stunned. "You mean it?" I asked. He nodded, hugging me. "It's home," he said. Rachel joined us, her hand in his. "We're family," she said. I held them both, tears falling, the vineyard wrapping us in its peace. The night ended with guests leaving, their voices echoing thanks. Tom clapped my shoulder. "You pulled it off, Miss Margaret," he said. I smiled, exhausted but whole. Driving home, I thought of my father, his dream alive in Ethan's choice. David's defeat was final, not just in court, but in our hearts. I stopped at my cottage, pulling out my journal. I wrote, "The vineyard brought us back. Love wins when you hold what matters." I closed the book, peace settling over me. The next day, Clara called laughing. "David's gone quiet," she said. "You won, Margaret." I smiled, looking at the vineyard photos on my wall. It wasn't about winning, it was about family roots, love. The moral was clear. Hold tight to what's true, and no one can take it away. I hung up, ready for the days ahead, with Ethan, Rachel, and the vineyard that saved us all. If you love this story, hit subscribe for more like it, and share where you're tuning in from. The vineyard story wasn't over, and neither was mine.